Oh, all right. Well, I wasn't ready for that. So great, we're live. Huzzah!
Jesus.
Oh, it's so fucking hot. We're only going to do a 30-minute show today. It's too hot in my basement, if you can believe
it. Do you watch The Boys?
I stopped watching about halfway through the second season. It's a show I have to watch without the family, so like I just kind of got to put it in as I get
there. It's a show that I don't even want to watch at all.
But you watched The Invincible, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what is it? Isn't The Boys Garth Ennis, right?
Yeah, Garth Ennis, man. Like, never has a comic book writer hated comic books so much.
Yeah, man. Like I just can't. What's going on, Rolls? I just can't. Like he's. And you know, I've read The Boys. Like I've read the comic. Like I remember.
Oh, you read the comic?
Yeah, I read the comic, so I know what happens. Like I know how certain characters die and whatnot, who does what and does where, and who's a clone and who's whatever else. I mean, it's just totally like I've read it all. But like the show, it's like we complained. There was a time when like DC Comics and Batman was like, oh, everything's getting too dark. We're tired of dark and brooding and whatnot. So then we moved away from that, and then we went to like, oh, everything's too bright and campy. All right, so we went back to dark, and then like, oh, now it's the perfect balance, sort of, kind of. But we're so tired of it. So tired. DC is a wolf, so we'll know. And then like the shows that get the most like talk are like these gruesome like shock value shows. Like The Boys is just like what can Homelander do this episode, or what can so and so do this episode that's going to shock you. Like,
well, there's like a real nihilism to that kind of show, right? Like it's a lot of disenfranchised men, frankly, that enjoy that kind of like disregard for decorum and heroism, right? So Garth Ennis has an audience like that. Preacher was the same way. That kind of disrespectful, self-aware approach to that's always been there. Fight Club, man.
Yeah, like, but I mean, like all that stuff, doesn't it? I mean, have we not had enough of that? Like in media, like is. I mean,
if you were 23, you'd be different, you know? Like now you're a little.
Yes.
We're not the target audience for boys, man. That's the Mid-Geek crisis right there in a nutshell.
That's so weird to me. Like I just can't. I can't get into it. Like I know. I'm like I know what's gonna happen because I read in the comic. But like the gratuity, like how they push the envelope on it. They don't get me wrong. There's a great set of actors on that show. Like and some people are reprising some roles. Like, you know. You've got some great actors pulling off some great like work on there, and I'm not diminishing the actors in any way. I'm just like, it's so weird to me. Like Garth Ennis's work is just so dated. It's like Postal, the show. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I mean, like there was a time and a place for that. That's the type of comic
I mean, at least the first season and halfway to the second, it's a little smarter than Postal, but also you're right. It doesn't shy away from the lowest common denominator joke. You're totally right there. It doesn't. Why didn't they blow someone up by stuffing something up their butt? Like
yeah. Like I mean, there's
shy away from that.
Like, oh, come on, like, and also like the you know, and again, this is just my personal like writers love to like practically wank it at like Superman but bad guy. Like let's like is that like it's so one note, like it's so like let's make Superman a bad guy. What if Superman was a bad guy? I'm like, God's sakes, have we had a Superman is a good guy movie? Like that doesn't not even Superman movies we get
not a watchable one.
Right. Oh, yeah, there we go.
I mean, whatever. The news
I the target on my chest for that
Jesus
one.
Christ. So depending on your definition of a Christ figure, right, is a new Superman. All right, you know what? Well, let's roll the credits and let's invite some people to enjoy our show. What's up?
Well, I mean, you know,
yeah. Hating on the boys to kick it off.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mid-Geek Christ, episode 184. I am your host, Joe, and my partner in crime over here, Pedro.
Cautious online. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
Look, Dan's like, I'm here. I just didn't have any input on The Boys. That's all right, Dan. You don't need to watch The Boys. Everyone likes their own thing.
Yeah,
I find it interesting that like Amazon has sort of like it's like the anti-Disney. Like it can't be Disney, so it has weird science fiction, weird comic book shows, and weird fantasy shows.
Yeah, like before the credits rolled, we were talking about The Boys, and we're talking, and I was like, "Have you watched it?" And aren't you like, "Don't you watch Incredibles?" And I'm like, Invincible, and I'm like, Invincible's interesting. Like, there's a difference between Invincible and because there's still a hero there. Like, I'm not saying that The Boys don't have your
man thing that you like.
Well, I mean, but like that story of like Omni-Man is like all of the first like 5 issues of the entire story. Like Omni-Man is not really the villain for the whole thing.
Wow, you just spoiled it for an entire generation of
I know, right? Yeah. Darth Vader is Luke's father, by the way.
It's interesting, right? Like
also it's animated, so like the factor, the gore and violence factor is ramped up past CG, past like live action. So like blood is like paint. It's just red paint that paints a wall, and there's something about like on a cartoon. It's like, well, it's I don't know. Maybe it just the line of like I grew up watching like things like Akira, where someone's head explodes. It's like just like a gusher of blood that's like 22 pints of blood per human, which is like
when was the last time you watched the original Predator movie?
It's been a long time since I've seen the original Predator.
Put it on because you're gonna feel squeamish. That's like a horror movie, dude.
Yeah, no, totally. I there's no joke there.
There's a lot of explosions and blood and gore and all that stuff, and that's an
what's going on, Brandon?
Film, right? Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. The violence in Invincible is more cartoonish.
Yeah,
but it's visceral. I mean,
it is visceral.
Watching at the very first episode, I was like, "This isn't for me." Right. And then I tried because you said try it, and I tried the second stuff, and I said, still isn't for me. So I gave up on it after that. But I did go online. I read about it, so I know the plot. The Boys I gave up on after a season and a half because I was like, this isn't for me.
Well, I guess because The Boys just start slower. It doesn't have that first episode shock that I just don't remember, right?
I guess like
So what made you push through a season and a half of The Boys versus like
my brother really enjoyed it, and also like it just hit me the right way after all of the Disney Marvel films. Like sometimes it felt like a palate cleanser. Like after all that cloying Marvel fanboy garbage, it felt good to watch a TV show that was decidedly different take on superheroes. Because there is something to explore speculative fiction wise. Like if we have superheroes in a capitalist world, would they be good? Right? Like, would they?
Yeah.
That's a
no. I mean,
on either side, right?
Rolls. I don't know. That's subjective, right? Everyone's taste and palate and whatever else is up to them, and I don't believe media shouldn't exist, right? Like, I'm definitely a fan of the art of horror movies. I'm definitely a fan of the practical special effects and the the horror genre, like the masters of horror, like John Carpenter and all of that. They're fantastic storytellers with science fiction aspects and like gore and makeup and all that. But I also am not a fan of. I personally am not a fan of horror in the like shock value sense. Like how much visceral how much inhuman rending and tearing can we do like just to like oh, let's make sure that 5 people get decapitated and all of their guts spill on the floor on camera without a still shot showing all of it in all of its full glory, just for the sake of like being the first to do that on camera.
Right, there's like torture porn and gore porn. That's a little much, right? Like Saw or a Hotel or Hostel. I don't know.
Hostel, any of the Eli Roth stuff,
like Grindhouse or I do enjoy some visceral violence. Like I love like hyper realistic martial arts films, right? I love it when
Right.
they go after each other with machetes or break arms and legs. I'm always like, oh, that was amazing stunts, right? I love those.
With those, I guess my argument would be with those is there is a usually a clear hero in it all. Like the me as the person watching it can focus on the hero and know that hopefully by the end of it the hero makes it through.
Huh.
Sometimes with horror movies there is no hero. Sometimes it's just victims, right? And then
Good way to put it.
when we got later in the 90s, we started getting to where movies like a good example is what's the one Jeepers Creepers, I think is what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
But by the end of that one, no one wins, right? Like they're all the teenagers or all the like victims die. And there's other movies like there's other horror movies where they
Final
show
Destination, is that another one you didn't like? The Final Destination?
no, that one is interesting, but like
Dude, you knew it when you see it. Your mind isn't straight. It's kind of like
yeah. There's definitely but you know what I mean. Like sometimes they set up these characters only for them by the end. There's some like twisted plot where like they show them like trapped in a coffin, no, and the credits roll. It's like like there was no winner there. Everyone died. Everyone died a gruesome death. There was nothing for me to like clench onto to kind of go, hey, that guy's gonna be the hero. And then even in the 80s, there was always like the one. There was always one of the teenagers or whatever. That's the guy that's going to kill Freddy, or that's the guy that's going to get Jason. Or
they get to the chopper. There's always one guy who gets away.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that's my problem with some of the horror movies.
Yeah, Brandon's naming some like, I mean, House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects is definitely some like gory stuff, but it mostly made him laugh because it was so over the top. I could see that.
Right.
Saw and Hostel, yeah. Final Destination seemed more like a thriller series than a horror. But I defy you to find someone like somewhere between I want to say like 28 and 48
that will drive behind a truck
in the car. Yes,
no one will do it.
Everyone will be like, "Oh, I remember this from Final Destination."
Oh yeah, every time I'm behind any type of truck with a lock, I'm like, "Nope, I've seen that movie. I've seen it. I'm moving out the way."
I mean, never find anyone that won't get out of the way of that. Dan, I have not seen the latest Scream movie unless you mean like Scream 3 35 years ago. Like I don't.
Isn't it Scream 6 or whatever? I think that's the one that was the latest one. Hit a nail on the head. Nothing beats the good old lone gun versus bad guys. A la Die Hard, Taken, Man on Fire. Not hard, but yes, right. Rolls. You're absolutely right. That's
genre. Yeah.
It is its own genre, but sometimes some of those cross over, right? Like a director will be influenced by those movies and then also want to do a horror movie, so they'll take some of that back and forth. Like we've blurred the lines between some of these genres because so many of us have grown up watching those old genre flicks, and we've like, what if it's sci-fi and horror, or what if it's action and horror and comedy, or people like James Gunn, for example, did
he just wanted to kiss
things like Slither, for example. Like he did that like weird campy horror but also comedy. Like James Gunn really pulls that off pretty well. He did that.
I mean, like you have like John Wick is just straight lone gunman action movie, and that's got some visceral, violent moments in it, right? Popping skulls like left and right the whole first film, and you're still cheering, you're still rooting because you've got your hero.
I guess my answer for that one would be like they don't linger on it. Like
it doesn't have the gore porn.
He moves so quickly. It's like bah, you see like you cringe, and then he moves on. He's moving. He's not like sitting there like drooling over the victim, like
Meanwhile, in The Boys, he's like wiping it off his face and like trying it, right?
They pop so easily. Come on,
they're rebelling in enjoyment. Yeah, you're right. There is that.
Oh man. Yeah. So I mean, the conversation of this was this. I was over the weekend. We had a couple of pretty good sci-fi / geek drops. We had Neil Gaiman's The Sandman finally dropped on Netflix, which has been a wild ride for sure. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then also the new Predator movie, or Prey, as it's called, on Hulu, which again is seems like a high budget action horror thriller, kind of a mix of genre, because again it is one like person against the Predator, or at least some Comanche warriors against the Predator.
So, yeah. And they some of them lose, some of them win. I haven't seen it yet, but by all accounts, people are very much enjoying it.
Yeah.
So there's some folks out there fighting the fact that it was a main female character. But
well, their voices should not even be heard. Those people should
they
just
scream louder than everyone else. So
of course they do. Of course they
but
do.
that looks great. Maybe I don't know. I haven't been to the theaters to see a good horror movie since I was in my 20s, right? So
yeah.
But it's good. And then John Wick 4 is coming out. Isn't that coming out?
Yeah. So that got announced at Comic-Con, and they showed like the teaser image and whatever. For Sandman, what's been interesting is if you're a fan of the comic and read the first arc, like book 1 or of the trade paperback, so you can kind of catch up. They've got book 1, book 2, kind of what these first 10 episodes are about. What's been interesting is there has been some changes, right? Like Neil Gaiman definitely has grown. You can see his age in some of those earlier books, like writing certain characters in a very like transparent / not very deep way. And he's kind of gone back and refined some of these characters, and some people that maybe have passed away didn't pass away in the show, and the changes felt good. They felt like, the wife watched or she listened to the recent Audible rendition of it. I think James McAvoy does Dream. Really, really great. If you go to audible.com, there's a narration of the first like big story
novel?
of Sandman. And it's star filled, a bunch of different voice actors. And at the same time, Neil Gaiman fills in. He's a narrator of it all, but at the same time, you've got James McAvoy as Dream and a couple other people. Let me see if I can pull up that info on it.
Sure.
But yeah, anyway, she listened to it. And she kind of knows what was happening, and even though she, as we're watching it, she's like, "Oh, well, that's different," or "Oh, that's cool." They've changed some things.
Always a fun thing to hear when you're trying to watch a TV show. For the record, that's
right. Yeah. James McAvoy, Neil Gaiman, Kat Dennings. I think she plays Death in this. So definitely a pretty big cast. This was 2020 when this was released, which is interesting because when this was made, I mean, I don't know when the production of this started, but they created this audio version of it, right? And then the pre-production for the Netflix one had to have been on its way
already in process.
So
I mean, Sandman's like the Skyrim of comic book literature. Really, they just keep making it in every media they can find. Right, that's really what it's about here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, Eric Mangs. That's interesting to sort of like uncouple the art. That's a weird thing to do in my mind.
Yeah.
That's a weird.
Oh yeah, Kat Dennings is great as Death. Again, this is a
like imagine. I don't know. Like imagine reading, like doing an audible book of The Watchmen. So much of it is translated and presented through the art. How does that work?
I think what's interesting with Neil Gaiman, he does comic, right? But he's also a writer, like a writer, right? Like he's
let's stop you right there. Writers are writers, right? Like
yes, I know you're right. But what I'm getting at is
is a writer.
A lot of people kind of they go, well, comic writers aren't do they have a full book in them?
We don't do that here in the Mid-Geek Crisis, right? Writers are writers.
We don't. Writers are writers. You're absolutely right. What I'm getting at is some people are short form writers where they can write a plot or a story and they depend on the artist to kind of fill in. But Neil Gaiman has been writing books where he's very descriptive, and so he's kind of gone back and filled in a lot of the blanks. If you listen to this, it's anything that you would have gotten visually, you can get through his words again.
I got it. For some reason, my ears keep hearing Neil Diamond. I'm like, not that Neil, right? Yes. How disappointing would that be if we spent 20 minutes talking about Neil Diamond, right? That would be.
Would it? Yes, it would.
Yes, it would.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Yes.
Anyway, so far we're 5 episodes in, or 4 episodes in actually, because we stopped at a particular point, and if anyone's familiar with the diner scene is what it's called, you'll know what I'm talking about. And so we stopped there because my wife is also not a big horror / gore fan in any way. And she's like, you know what? You watch this episode and tell me how it is. So,
oh my gosh, because she remembers being traumatized by it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anywho, that's it. This just like anything gore, this show does not shy away from some of the visceral parts of the sci-fi and and you know the killings and whatever else in the show. So again, if you're a fan of, like, if you're not familiar with what Sandman is about, Sandman is Morpheus or Dream, the not a god, he's one of the endless of death and destiny and Dream and a couple of other ones are these endless. They're not gods per se, but they're like
second tier.
Like second tier,
Mhm.
you know, people that control certain realms.
They're not Hades, but they're workers for Hades. They do stuff for Hades, sure.
Right. And so if you're a fan of like any of the occult, any magic, heaven, hell, demons, that sort of stuff, that kind of like demigods, all that type of occult dark side of if you're familiar with anything like the Vertigo line on DC, or maybe the Doctor Strange books from Marvel, this is right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
If you like John Constantine or the Constantine movie or anything like that, this is it right here.
Was that not? That wasn't in the same universe. Sometimes
absolutely.
It was, right? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we do get a Constantine in this, and of course, again, you do have some like people that are like, what do you mean? There's a woman as Constantine? That makes no sense. And it's like, she was always a woman in Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Like, I don't get it. Like, stop it. Just stop. Like, we get it. You hate women.
Exactly the same, but also different, right? This is how we killed Cowboy Bebop. Let's kill Sandman too. That's
right.
It all must be exactly the same and also different. Yeah. So good. Yeah, go watch the TV.
Go watch it. Go check it out. It's all up. All 10 episodes are up. Go give it some good stuff. I feel like it's a change of pace if you're wanting to get away from the Disney Plus, you know, the Disney feel, that Marvel formula.
I still haven't brought myself to watch Obi-Wan or any of the new Marvel shows, man. I think I've had my fill for a while. Like, I just don't feel.
That's fair.
Back to it.
That's fair.
And I'm always like, well, there's nothing to watch. But then like,
I didn't run to them as fast as I normally do. Right,
yeah.
Like this Marvel, I didn't run to. Although it felt good when I did watch it. Obi-Wan, I did watch it, but I waited the first 3 episodes, I think, or so dropped before I sat down and watched. It is Marvel overload, but I think that they're almost their own channel, right? You have to think of it like, you know, their own programming. This is their. They're gonna fill in. They're gonna have a release once a month of something, whether it be Marvel, Star Wars, or any type of show. They want to have.
It's just too much. I just can't keep up.
Yeah,
Andor looks great, Dan, and I think that's what I'm like saving my Star Wars energy for. Like, I don't want to waste it on Obi-Wan.
Right.
I want to go to Andor and then go from there.
Yeah, Brandon, it was pretty good, but I mean, if you're familiar with the show in general, like the Jedi and the Skywalkers and all that are not Pedro's bag anymore, and I get it, and I totally agree with him sometimes in the sense that, like, I'm a little Skywalkered out, I'm a little Luke out. Like, I it's fun to see all that, but it's almost like what's nice about it is, like, growing up with genres of comics, right? You had a universe, the entire Marvel universe, but if you were in the mood for like a space comic, you'd pick up a space comic, and it would still be within the Marvel universe. And I think if Star Wars wants to play that role, they're going to have to keep going. Like, so we have the bounty hunter stuff, we have the magic Jedi stuff, you know, past story, future story, and then we also have things like rebellion, where we don't need to depend on a Jedi to kind of get them out of, you know, every predicament. You know, the humans, the no powered lobies need to be able to, like, pull themselves out of the trenches and do things.
Yeah, you're right, Brandon. That's what I'm talking about. Andor is going to look great that way, right? So you're going to give us some rebels pew-pewing some stormtroopers, and that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
So that's what I'm waiting for. Speaking of Luke, did you
I saw a little bit of them.
Jack in the Box is regional. It's so not East. Like, they remember.
Yeah, it is totally not an East Coast thing.
Brandon, I'm just gonna say this. They need to stop goofing around and make a series based on the old Republic KOTOR. Hard disagree, Brandon, but you keep pining away for that. You just keep pining away for that old Republic stuff. Hard disagree. I think
it says. Here we go. I'll play one of them real quick. Just
go for it. Wait, what? I don't think we have sound, do we? I can see his face, Joe, but we don't have sound.
Really? No sound?
No sound. At least I don't have sound.
God, that's so great. Okay, hold on. Let me find out why. That's so funny. Share screen. Oh, that's probably why.
There you go. Dan said it. No sound. Pop, pop, pop.
How about that?
There we go. Yep. There it's back. Yay.
Welcome to Jack in the Box.
May I take your order?
Welcome to Jack in the Box. May I take your order?
Can I get the French toast sticks?
French toast sticks. Yummy. Please pull forward.
Here's your order. Thank you for choosing Jack in the Box.
Do people recognize him? Like I recognize him too. Does is Mark Hamill's face that?
Maybe.
Well, you look like him.
I've seen literally all of your movies. I have grown
She's
up.
like,
Let's do a selfie.
Go back into Argo?
Here you go.
Why are you here?
Well, it's a long story. I worked here as a teenager. I finally got to work the window. And I thought instead of just saying, can I take your order in my regular voice, I did do a clown voice.
And they didn't like it?
They didn't like it at all. All these years later, they called me up and said, you want to come back? Second chance for sure. I'm taking it.
Shut up.
And now I'm back, baby.
Second chance are awesome.
You bet. So there I was, strung up in a harness, and they break for lunch. All right.
But you don't have to talk to everybody for so long.
Duly noted.
All right, thanks, Mark Hamill.
Have a nice day.
So,
You forgot your napkins. Oh, well. She'll be back. Oh, that was a twice in a lifetime opportunity.
So you're coming back tomorrow?
Nah, I'm good.
Such a weird move.
that's great. I hope those were like 5 real people and not actors, because
yeah, hopefully, or at least they said, hey, there's gonna be someone at the window. Like, do you want to be on camera? I mean, they have to get some sort of consent, right? Or they film them and then they guess for
I think
consent.
you could do it after. Like you could do it afterwards. You film them and then you say, can we use this thing afterwards? So you get like the 5 best ones. Oh, come on.
Ah, boo.
Well, we could just do that for your roles.
Oh man. So let's talk about the nostalgia here and Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill, as old as they are, something that's over 30 plus years at least.
Okay, all right.
Let's pull this string real quick. So over the weekend, we had this weird find. I don't know if you saw this.
There we go. Super Punch-Out has a hidden 2-player mode, and you can now play it on the Switch. What a world we live in.
So Super Punch-Out is available on the Switch with your free quote unquote
The subscription service, sure.
Yeah, with your subscription, your Nintendo Online account, you get the Super Nintendo games. So Super Punch-Out's on there. So over the weekend, you had unlisted cheats on Twitter find this. While doing some requests for it, casually found some new cheats in Super Punch-Out for Super Nintendo. All secret codes in this game use 2-button combinations. 2 of them are known, sound test and Japanese input. It says, at the title screen, hold Y and R and press A or start. Following screen will appear. Here you can select any character to fight a free single match.
So like this is something before you go to the circuit. That's pretty cool.
Next, you can activate a 2-player mode. Highlight the fighter. It says, even more free matches to player. I mean, you could do Joypad 2. It's just weird that all this is here. Like, this is back in the day, of course, of you'd find things in magazines. Pretty much the only way you could see things. The Nintendo Power.
Your friend who got the magazine told you about it. Oh, there's a secret.
Right. But it's interesting to me. Like, this is a code. Like, a 2-player mode programmed in the game would have been something that would have probably sold the game more. Like, there would have been people, friends, and like I feel like a whole hopefully someone found this and didn't tell anyone, or if they found it, they didn't know how to. I just feel like there might have been some sort of like, hey, here's 2 brothers that got this for Christmas, and they weren't allowed to play. They played it a single player. They didn't know how to play.
Turns. I mean, we took turns and fought over it. That's
right.
That was the Super Punch-Out experience. Was you took turns until eventually it was a real life fist fight between both brothers.
Right.
That's how that always went down.
Such a weird thing to find, but I mean, this is kind
It's
of what's
interesting that you would program it and do all the steps, and apparently you can even do like the opponent's moves, like you could do the brush or the tiger attack or whatever.
yeah. It's
As
all
the opponent, and it's interesting that they would program all that in the interactions, but not like tell anybody, not reveal it. How can a developer not even talk about it, or like it's.
What's
weird
interesting
that
about this
information
is
doesn't leak out.
we had third-party companies for years, right? People that did Game Shark
Sure.
and Game Shark and Game Genie, Galoob and Codemasters and all these. And if you're familiar with how cheats work, okay, there's this great there's a great YouTube channel. We'll see if I can find the info on it, but it's a great YouTube channel where they kind of disassemble code. They kind of go through the process of like, hey, how do we fix things with on certain games? And he'll go through with like Game Genie and memory hacks and whatever, and using emulators and whatnot, and maybe slow down things, or how you go in and adjust, flipping certain bytes in memory to give yourself infinite lives, or how Game Genies work and all that kind of stuff. And so the fact that this is hard coded in the game meant that there was a way that, someone somewhere found all of the Game Genie codes to input these so that you could just plug them in and then start the game up and not have to do a lot of these extra like button commands or whatever, or give yourself like infinite hearts or whatever else. The fact that one wasn't found is interesting to me. It just you looked already for all these other variables, but you didn't find there was literally a door there marked 2-player mode, or hey, here's a whole menu dedicated to stage select, and it wasn't found.
Wouldn't you also find the button combination press would unlock something? There was an unlock, right? There was something that could be unlocked via this.
Right. So
again, on the second controller, right? Maybe that's
right. So you could find sound test and the Japanese name input could be found already through key commands. Like those were already, people already knew how to do those.
These are button commands. Yeah.
So then the first thing you find is the special circuit, which is essentially like, hey, you can now, if you want to practice on one of the fighters, you can now choose and stage select that fighter, which is something that's completely blows my mind that was there, but that's really cool. It's almost like a debug menu, right? Because through Q&A or whatever, here's someone that would be playing the game over and over again. And you're like, I found a bug with this fighter, but I lost. How do you go back to that player again? Well, most games have debug menus where you can like put in a key command or whatever, and that's usually taken out.
Then, right? Because you couldn't. You have to play it out.
That stuff is usually taken out of the game, or it's hidden enough where it's a deep cheat, but at the same time they leave it in there. Anyway, my point is that's there. So developers, let's say 5 years after the game came out, you would have thought the developers would have told some magazine somewhere.
That's my thought. Like it would have been revealed by someone who's proud of the fact that they made this work. And Dan says the SNES didn't have a Game Genie. I didn't think they cracked it.
It didn't have a Game Genie per se. There were other third-party like devices that you can use. For I think there was a Game Shark or a let's see what it was.
Man, I never had a Game Genie. Like I had a friend who had it. He would bring it over. And
there was definitely a Game Genie for Super Nintendo.
All right, get it together, Dan. You used to be the knowledge, but now you've been demoted this episode.
Look at this. There we go. So
there we go.
$36 Super Nintendo Game Genie.
He doesn't search Google. He searches eBay.
Yeah.
That could be like a counterfeit. We don't know if that's real.
Oh, it's real. Galoob, baby. Galoob. But yeah, no, there was. There was all sorts of. Game Genie, Super Nintendo, and then the regular Nintendo one. But they existed. But then after that, there wasn't much. There's Game Genies for Game Gear, but all those work by memory transfer.
Right.
They flip bits in memory. So
flip switches and things work.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the codes were always like 8-digit numbers, like 4 digits, or they were hexadecimals, what they were essentially.
Yeah.
And so you were essentially coding without realizing it. You had a book and people just write down the book, but if you knew what you were doing and knew how to play around and had some sort of like,
there was a guide. It was like try this group. Like
there was like how to write your own codes, and it even told you how to do that and how to find them. It took a lot of trial and error because there was no way to pause the game and then flip it. You have to go back to the menu every time to kind of do it.
Yep, and your brother wants to play, and you're like, "What are you doing?" And you're
Right,
just,
right.
Go ahead.
And nowadays we've got emulators, right? So with emulation, what's great about it is the emulators have a lot of these memory tools built into them. So you have the game running in a window, and then on the right you can have these tools, and you can live flip those bits in and out and change
like you're
things.
running the Matrix, right?
Right,
You're
right,
like
right. I mean, you're
adding stuff.
you're controlling the game, and you're hacking the game. So the fact that this is a popular game, Super Punch Out, you just found these codes is mind blowing to me. It's amazing that a game this popular, a Nintendo game no less, it wasn't some obscure game. This is a game that a lot of copies sold. So the fact that this was found is kind of cool to me. Like,
It's cool. I think it's awesome. I don't know that I would be able to be quiet about it. Jay.
right.
Like even if Nintendo's like you can never reveal anything, I don't know. Like after 10 years, I'd be like, no one's played this 2-player yet. That's a real bummer. I gotta tell somebody. Like I wouldn't be able to keep it secret, which is like it would damage me to my core if someone couldn't 100% play the game that I worked on.
Yeah, I mean,
so
people were playing the game, but also like, could you imagine being the one guy whose entire purpose was to add that second player? Like there had to have been one person that coded that, like one or two people that coded the second player mode, and like, oh, by the way, it's hidden. No one gets to play that, and it was never released.
I wonder if it was so that you can activate and test moves. Maybe it was like a debug thing where you're like, okay, let's see if the block against Bush's attack or Bull Rush attack.
Right.
Let's see if these moves work. We don't have to wait for the computer to do it, kind of deal.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's interesting that again, this is one of those things.
It could also be one of those things that was put in there and no one asked them to do it, right? Can we make this 2-player? I wonder. Let's see. Let's play around with the code and see if we can make this a 2-player game.
So over the weekend, Evo happened. So
Gen Con also happened, but sure, let's talk about Evo. Who cares about the world, the nation's largest board game and tabletop con?
What's interesting is I know Gen Con was happening, and I looked online at most of my geek sites and saw hardly any news from it. Like there was no announcement, no game announcements, no nothing. It was like, it was great for people that were there, but like they didn't usually big companies announce stuff.
You know how I know Gen Con happens? I see a ton of Facebook merchant posts selling all of the promo things that were at Gen Con.
Fair enough. Yeah,
that's what I see. A million people selling Juggernaut cards that were only available at Gen Con.
Yeah. So that said, is last year or so before, midsummer, whatever. There was a online social media campaign of like to kind of bring back a Marvel vs. Capcom 2. There was a whole hashtag, like free, like free MVC2 is what it was, and it was all about the idea that Disney owns the rights to Marvel, and here's a game, and we want a new port of it because you can't really legally buy it anymore. It's been pulled off of the PlayStation 3 store. You can't buy it.
Everyone has to play it illegally. Right.
Yeah, everyone has to play it illegally. So they're like, just release a new port. We'll play it online. We all want to play it. We all wanted it back. Like Disney, come on, let us have these characters.
Now's the time too. Why wouldn't you put this out now?
So during the weekend, Evo, one of the biggest fighting game community tournaments held in Vegas yearly, and it was canceled last year because of COVID and all that other stuff. But it's your first year back. And during that time, some structure has changed. Sony and a couple of other people now own Evo.
Okay.
So new management, under new rule, whatever. But one of the nice things is that Evo is also the place for big companies like Bandai Namco and Capcom and all the fighting companies to either announce new patches or new games or new updates or the next Street Fighter, whatever. And so
they got the audience.
They've got the audience for it. I mean, this is it. And so one of the things that they announced was they dropped, this is kind of a monkey paw moment, right? So they announced Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is coming back.
Oh yeah!
So the way to buy it is you have to buy a $700 arcade one-up cabinet.
$700?
Yeah,
that seems cheap.
It's 3/4 height, so it's not a full-size cabinet.
Sure. You put it on top of your table, right? That's what these.
No, it's half height. So like, you can stand at it and play at it like this, where you put one of the risers on it, but it's not sit down. You can sit down on a bar stool and play. So, but it's not a bar top. There is a bottom to it.
So wait, I don't. How tall is it? Taller than a man?
No.
All right.
It's just uncomfortable enough for an adult to like not be able to play without sitting on a bar stool.
I see. Okay, so you got to sit. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That seems pretty cheap. $700 for this,
Yeah.
right?
So they say did not specify price, but everyone knows it's $700. Why? Because the Killer Instinct machine that they announced was $700. So this is the common price. This is not what we wanted. This is what no one wants. So here's the problem with this, and this I'm going to put on my.
All right, go ahead. You're going to put on your hat.
Fighting game community hat, guy that's got multiple cabinets for fighting games and build sticks. One, arcade one-up machines are cheaply made. I'm going to say it. So the material that this is like 1/4-inch plywood.
Like corkboard, garbage corkboard.
It's flat pack, right? So when you buy it, they're sitting at the end caps, flat pack kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's 1/4-inch plywood. So a arcade machine is 3/4-inch plywood. So this is already like less than half of that material. It's thin. It's real thin. So it's real flimsy. Second, the buttons and joysticks that they use are real cheap. They're all knockoff stuff. So they're not, you would think like, hey, you're going to pay $700 for a premium thing. They would put real arcade parts from actual arcade vendors. No, these are all knockoff parts. They're not.
Sure.
When I say knockoff parts, it's not that they're fake buttons. They're real buttons, but they're not made by any manufacturer that actually made parts for console or video games. That they're just like replica joysticks they're passable. They're not meant for high use, pro use, any type of like heavy use.
You're saying you'll be replacing it soon.
Right. And third, well, I mean, cabinets in general, like most people like CRTs. This game is kind of interesting because this Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out right at the transition. It's Dreamcast upwards, so we were already kind of moving over to LCD. So that's not even a big bother. The problem is the biggest LCDs that you can get in this like 4x3 is 17 inches. New manufacturer, and so it's pretty tiny. So these are tiny machines, and they're really they're selling these to adults. So two grown adults standing side by side trying to play against this on a screen that's it's about the size of a laptop.
What price nostalgia, man?
I know, right? So I get it. And the biggest other factor is that for $700, it's not like exactly like a high power computer in there. When they open these things up, it like the chips in it's like a $30 Raspberry Pi.
Sure.
So
how much? I mean, like, how would you do it?
I don't know. I mean, the Marvel vs. Capcom.
I'm gonna let you know. 700 seems reasonable to me if I was a huge fan of fighting games and I wanted a small cabinet in my game room. Any more than that, I'd be like, I'm not gonna. That's way too
right. Much. And this is one of those. This is the conversation that it's hard to like. I don't want to be like an elitist about it, right?
Well,
I'm trying to be very reasonable in the idea, like, yes, if you've got the money, sure, buy it. But Arcade 1-Up seems to be cashing in on the nostalgia in a very like dirty way because the prices have gone up over and over, right?
Sure.
When they first started coming out, you could buy a Street Fighter 2 cabinet, like a Street Fighter 2 cabinet, which, by the way, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 never really had an actual machine that looked like anything because it was in the genre where they would just arcade owners would buy the kit, they'd buy the Naomi board, and they would drop it into what's called the showcase cab or a universal cab. But that said, though, is none of this artwork is new. For example, all of this right here, this is the same control panel that they had for Street Fighter Championship Edition machine that they've got. So this is all recycled stuff, like assets. The only thing different that they've got is this marquee on the top, and the side art, which I've seen in another picture, is recycled art. It's not even new art for such a special edition machine. So it's really weird to me. So again, Arcade 1-Up really likes to use really low tier parts. All right.
Sure.
But they used to charge $400, $500. But they've slowly moved up higher and higher, $600, $700.
Probably supply chain, probably.
I get it.
Licenses are probably gone up.
So that said, though, and I get the licensing costs. I get all that. So, Dan, right there, that's $399.
That's a legitimate cost for a tabletop or a 3/4 arcade machine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good. I mean, how much does this cost in flat pack material? I mean, this is cheaper than IKEA material.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you could buy a whole IKEA table for $89, right? Like, it would.
So how much would it cost you to build your own Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
So, like, there's no legal way, right? Like, that's the problem. let's move the legalities out of the way. I mean, I'm going to speak metaphorically.
Let's say you're building a box for a warlord who does not care about legality, right?
So I mean, so let's do this live on the show real quick. Let's price this out here.
Rio says, I don't know about y'all, but I see that whatever that is as a disrespect to my nostalgia.
Yeah,
Rio
so
says $2.99.
right. So let's talk about it. So let's go with a shell. Okay, so
Sure.
if you see right here, that right there, that's a bar top.
Yep.
Right, and that's about as wide, if not maybe this is wider than that machine.
Okay.
Right there.
Right.
So
you're gonna
that
be
right there. So let's talk about just the
your
shell.
trash talk is going to be way too close. I get it. Elbow.
Right. But that is a bar top that sits on a table, but it's comfortably enough to sit down two adults. Okay. So a bar top kit, like a bar top cabinet by itself, right? Just a kit. And I'm going to pull this up just by doing a quick search. People are going to sell these for $1,000 completed, which is absolutely ridiculous. But the kit itself, which is what that thing is right there, is $130
for a 19-inch monitor. All right, let's go with that.
All right. So you're at $130 right there. And that gives you
bare bones, but got the plugins.
That's the shell, that's the skeleton for it. Next, let's just go something simple. Again, no high grade buttons. We're just looking for joysticks and buttons, right? So okay, joystick kit and buttons. If we go on Amazon here and we pull it up, a set of 8 buttons, 2 controllers, USB encoders, $44.
All right, so let's just say $50.
$50.
So we're at $180.
$180 right there.
Yep.
Next, you would probably want the brains, right? You want what are you going to run this on? So this is again weird time right now, but normally a Raspberry Pi would probably be the best way to put it, right?
Yep.
Raspberry Pi 4s right now are kind of in a weird price range. They're usually $40, but because
Rio wants to know what was that for $90. You mean the buttons and joysticks? Is that what you mean, Rio?
The buttons and joysticks. No, it's only one. It's only $44. So you don't need to double it, just once.
We rounded it up for $50 for the whole set.
Yeah, $50 for the whole set, and then $130 for the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now this is a weird one again. Like I'm saying, this is overpriced for what it is, but we'll even throw in at this inflated price here. So a Raspberry Pi 4 is usually a $40 board online normally, but because of COVID and shortage and all that, on Amazon it's $140.
Oh wow, it's got up $100.
Yeah, inflation, whatever the case may be. But let's chop that in half. Say 75.
No, I mean let's go with what it costs right now.
Okay, let's go for what it costs right now. So add that up right now for what it costs right now.
$140. So now we're up to $320.
$320, and again, that's pretty high considering. So let's drop a memory card in it. Let's get a 64 gigabyte ST for it.
$30.
So, no, not even, because these PNY ones are cheap. We're looking at we don't need anything. There we go. 64 gig SanDisk, $11.
Right, $11.
64 gigs will get you all the games you want, and then some.
So
including Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Dan says I've got a Raspberry Pi 3 for sale at $100, so we can knock $40 off that price.
I mean, again, it's one of those things, right? Like if you hunt for it, they used to be able to walk into places like Micro Center or Fry's or back, and you could buy this whole kit. They would sell you the bar top, the monitor, all that kind of stuff for a set price, and it was pretty cheap.
So far we're up to about $350.
Okay, and so the last thing you need really is the screen, right? So those bar tops, they say 19-inch. They're meant to fit a 22-inch monitor, widescreen.
Okay.
So if we pick a pretty decent one, here's a ViewSonic for $100. Here's a $99 one, 22-inch 1080p.
So now we're up to $431.
That's it.
So $431, but like hobbyists everywhere,
right?
You are undervaluing your time.
Sure.
Right. So how long is it going to take me, a dumbass, to put this thing together with instructions?
So again, and again, this is one of those things where the hobbyists have made it so much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, Joe. I mean, to put this, if I was like Joe, here's $500, put this together for me. You do it because you're my boy. But if someone on the street was like, Joe, can you make an arcade cabinet? I've seen your show. Make me a cabinet. What would you charge? $600, right? Because you're valuing your time.
Right.
And they're charging 700. But they're charging 700 for cheaper components, is what I'm hearing.
For cheaper components, and you're stuck with the games that it comes with.
Ah, Joe's like mine is ready for the pirate sea.
Right. So the difference is when you roll your own, you can not only have Marvel vs. Capcom, you can have Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you can have Marvel, you can have all the Street Fighters, you can have your Genesis, your Super Nintendo, all that stuff on there because
can I have Samurai Showdown.
You can have all the Neo Geo games. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, and they have to understand that these kits exist out there. Now I get it, and again, this is where I'm saying, a fool with his money is really parted. Like,
yeah, anybody, people have more money than sense for sure.
Right. So, like, if they want to buy this because they like the art, we're gonna go for it. But this is also
and they want an official one that is licensed, so they don't have to.
Right now,
deal with the moral quandary of.
Here's the mind like complete F, right? You want to own this game legally, right?
Right.
So let's go another route. Let's say you just want to play the game, but you also like, if I'm going to spend $700, how do I play the actual arcade version of this game?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go and look. What does a Naomi arcade board cost?
Okay.
So let's go to places that you can buy them easily, or like AliExpress, because they sell from overseas and you can buy stuff like that. So let's look for a Naomi arcade.
Gosh, I need to hire Joe as a consultant to find all these parts, though. That's going to be thousands.
All right. So a Naomi arcade, original Naomi arcade motherboard.
What?
It's $75.
And that works? Are we
Yes.
sure it works?
I mean, this is just the Naomi, no game.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So think of it like this is the console that Marvel vs. Capcom played on.
I
And then
gotcha.
the way the games were played were these cartridges or these boards up here at the top. And so Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is definitely one of the pricier ones, for sure. For example,
I gotta imagine it's like in high demand, right? You can't get that.
Yeah,
game
right.
anywhere else.
So Dead or Alive 2, $88. Capcom versus SNK is $130. You can see it there at the top. So these games are expensive. That said, though, is Zombie Revenge. Again, a lot of these are Dreamcast ports, right? Because the Naomi is essentially a Dreamcast in arcade form.
I gotcha. So anywhere between $100 and $200 could be the price today.
Right, for just the game. Guilty Gear X, kind of Project Justice, $150. Again, so if you wanted to buy the board and all of that, it's going to cost you maybe as much as you spend, but you also, for less than what they charge, you could buy Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the actual arcade board, and play it at home. Like that's the problem there. It's this weird, like, you want to charge $500 for it? Cool. $700's a bit much, and you're also not giving me any incentive on it, right? Like, let's say, for example, they sold a bigger kit for $700. I think you could throw a 32-inch TV and make like a cool cabinet wrapped around it.
That would seem like I would want a bigger screen, I think.
Right. And there's no TV out on that thing. So it's not like you could have the cabinet maybe like go, oh, I want to play it on my TV. Let me plug some controllers to it. It's not a switch, right? It's just
it's
the cabinet.
Straight up walled garden. Can't do anything.
Yes, right. That's the bigger problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's
how long is it going to take the experts on the web to break it apart and make it better?
Oh, I mean, the arcade one-up hacking scene is already there, but also they're like, why? It's almost like the cliche answer, and I'll just put a Raspberry Pi in it. Like, that's just the answer. It's like, I'll just shove a pie into it. Like, it just seems so silly. It's you're hacking their board, and that's the problem, right? The chip and the board and all that they choose is even cheaper than those Raspberry Pis. They're custom. Yeah. They're custom silicon, basically lowest common denominator, very underpowered. And also the bigger problem is they sold. I think Dan over here was talking about the T2 machine right here. They have a Terminator 2 machine that they released. I don't know if you saw this thing. Arcade 1-Up did sell an arcade. So here's the Terminator 2 machine for $500, and list price normally is $700, right? And so this is the arcade version of it with the light guns and all that. You can sit down and play T2 at home.
Oh wow!
Very cool little machine. This is like if you're going to spend for money for an arcade machine, this is cool because this is harder to replicate because you've got light guns, you've got like kind of a feel. Then people bought it and it was choppy and it was slow and it had like weird bugs because the emulation was bad because the hardware they chose that was inside of it
was garbage.
Was garbage. Like it just wasn't. It didn't run like the arcade. I mean, a lot of people won't notice it, but like you'd hit enter credit and it would like judder. And it was just like weird. So like, if I'm going to spend $700, I want to be sure that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 runs better than I can play it on a console because
I can emulate on my own console. Sure.
That game is already kind of like a high level. Like if you're going to sit down and buy that game, you're going to sit down and play some matches on it.
Yeah, you're not gonna get the stutter. You're not gonna.
Yeah,
get the stuttering.
just weird. It's just weird. And yeah, I mean, yes and no. I can agree and disagree. Limited run games is funny because limited run games isn't doing anything wrong. It's the fans that create the monster that limited run games is, right? And the early limited run game stuff was weird because they would drop it for sale and then it would go away. Now, as we've shown on the show, they have 6 to 8 week pre-order windows.
Yep. So everyone who wants a copy can get a copy.
So there should be there is no cash. Like I get what you're saying, nostalgia, but so is everybody else. Everyone is cashing in on nostalgia. They're not the only ones.
Every show is about the goddamn 80s. I'm listening to Kate Bush on the radio in my Lyft, and I'm like, what is happening here?
Right. Like everything. Like I mean, like Pepsi, Coke, Doritos, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Domino's. They've all got retro logos and retro styling. Everything nostalgia sells. So limited run games is not doing anything wrong. My point is limited run games is actually being smart about it. I mean, if they want to be in business, they're going to market towards that. And they also are doing things specific where they are only doing one run of a product. So, right. I mean, if they're going to a small indie developer and going, we're going to do one run, they're going to charge this company one run and that's it. So they can't keep producing because they got to move on to the next run. So that's limited run. That's not their fault. That's just the nature of the business for these smaller games. That said, though, the fan base is the one that makes it that crazy, right? Because they go out and buy it and collect and buy all of it.
These nerds are, they all have this like FOMO feeling. They cannot not have every single piece of a board game, every single piece of collector's.
They got to have limited run also. They know what they're doing, right? They number them, right? So limited run releases are numbered. So it also like they put it out there and they're like, it's numbered. Do with that information as it will. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm missing this number. It's some random game that no one cares about, but it doesn't. I'm missing number 17. This is ridiculous. So they've got to get it, and then that drives the value in the second market. And that's not limited run. Is just going. We know everyone's gonna pre-order our fucking games when we put them out there, and that's not their fault. Again. They are not enabling. They are the drug maker.
And at least like their games work, the materials and things that come with them.
Yeah, and also
probably of good quality. We're talking about arcade 1UP is not. Like,
Dan, they know exactly what they're doing. Also, to be fair, one of my favorite parts about limited run is that when you buy a game from limited run, even if it's not a game that's like for example, about Scott Pilgrim, even if you bought the cheapest $39 version of the game, what's cool about it is you crack it open and there's a manual in there. Like their nostalgia is enough that they add little things, even to their lowest release, things that you can't even get anymore. You go and buy the newest release of a Nintendo game for $60. You crack it open. There's no manual. There's no nothing. There's hardly any artwork on it. Like at least there's a little bit of love, even for the cheapest version of the game from limited run, because they're
marketing manual, the old lament of the old gamer.
Yeah, the lament. But also
the other man who's used to be so cool says
they do their best, right, to release a game. For example, like right now online, everyone's like, when am I going to get my copy of Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge? And they're like, we're not making it yet, even though you paid for it. That's not our fault. Tribute Games hasn't finalized the code, which means they're probably going to drop a DLC.
Oh.
And once the DLC comes out, then they'll get the final code to put on the cart to get it made. But they're not gonna. They just released a patch for it like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they're not going to release a garbage game, right? This is supposed to be a limited.
Yeah,
run.
and once it's limited run, they're not going to release a second run of it without without the DLC on it. So
Here's the patch.
yeah, they need the complete game. Scott Pilgrim took so long to come out because they waited for it all. Cuphead, for example, there's still no physical release on that one because they were waiting for the DLC to be finished so that they can sell the entire game as one game.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine giving a video game company money for that long and forever and ever, amen?
Yeah.
Not me. Not me. I just give it to my banker so he can lose it in the stock market.
Sometimes there's no game. It happens.
Just to close out the show, speaking of nostalgia, right? We want to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. They did drop the Sonic movie theater hits theaters December 20th, 2024. 2024, everyone, mark your calendars. Sonic the Hedgehog Part 3.
Oh, dude, my kiddo asks me every other day.
And now you have an answer. It's
now you have an answer. Yeah.
It's Daddy's birthday, right? That's what you can throw out there as well. So
it'll be.
Ask the whales who signed up for Pantheon. Or any of the folks, I think. I mean, like, sounds insensitive, but everyone who supports Kickstarter video games nowadays.
I think what's funny. I mean, I won't lie. After I threw $150 at a game recently, I told you about the Little Nemo game. Like,
I said to you, don't do it, and you did it.
And I did it anyway. And you know, there are some risks I'm willing to take, and not all of them. You know, Kickstarter. I've been burned by Kickstarter for sure. I swear I didn't mean to see something good. No, there's totally.
Brandon, you're on the right show.
You're on the right show. You're on the right show.
You're on my side of the fence, right?
But all that aside, like, sometimes you just, like, if you see the developer and you see the creator and you feel like they've got a passion, you got to stop thinking about it as a pre-order on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
This is money towards the development of the game. The bonus is you will be given a copy.
Let me help this person fulfill their dream and never hear about it again.
You're right. Yeah, it's Patreon, folks. Stop thinking about Kickstarter as a pre-order. It is Patreon. You are giving money to a creator to see if they can do it. If they can't get it kickstarted and it falls flat on its face, you got to stop being a little punk about it and, like, go into the comments. I want a refund. I didn't get my can opener / iPod player or whatever. I'm like,
people
you shouldn't have invested
their minds on Kickstarter. I love the comments.
No, dude, it's
the board game ones they lose their mind on.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you invest in and bring Madoff games, and you also have to be a little more wary about stuff. Like, if it's a physical product, go look at that product. Go look, go find, go look at patents. Do the best you can. There was a whole scam recently on. There was a company based out of, like, I think Sweden or whatever, that designed a 2-monitor add-on for a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, how manufacturing works is you go and talk to manufacturers out in China.
Yeah.
And you give them, they develop prototypes, and then they send the prototypes to you. But when you do that, there's a huge risk of your prototype being stolen.
Right, your intellectual property.
And they sell it to other Chinese companies, or they run it and then they start manufacturing it under a different name. And all of a sudden, you as the maker on your Kickstarter, you've got a Kickstarter still going, and people go, why is the thing that I pre-ordered already being sold? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, they start sending links, and sure enough, it's something that you can buy on AliExpress for half the price that you bought on Kickstarter. And but what's funny about it is half the time that stuff is, like, been cheaply made because they didn't. That's the prototype. They didn't send it back to the developer, to the creators, and went, no, we got to refine this, test this, do this, and then they fix it. So that happened recently where there's actually a company being sued in China, which never happens. It's actually, like, being taken into like court, like, in China for this kind of stuff. So that happens all the time for these hardware developers. You got to be wary when you're backing a piece of hardware on Kickstarter. Keep an eye on it. Sometimes it's already one of those Chinese companies just selling it on Kickstarter to make money, and they've already got it produced sitting in a warehouse.
And also, don't invest in a high-tech cooler for the beach, everybody.
Oh my god, isn't that one of the biggest ones? What was it?
It was the biggest disappointments.
Yeah, it was just a ice chest with like a speaker system and like a
Bluetooth. It made margaritas. It had a plug in.
yeah, right. It had a blender add-on or some crap. Oh, that thing! It sold like ridiculous amount, and of course, it had a very
At one point, it was the largest Kickstarter of all time.
Yes,
the real yes, the Amico. And Star Citizen. Star Citizen is a great example. I think they had 2 rounds of Kickstarters before they went off on their own website to steal money from people. I mean, get money from investors into their tool.
Yeah, coolest cooler, right? It was.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
This one it shut down after 5 years
without a Kickstarter reward. Look at that monstrosity, though. It's like it just needs some. Look at it's got a blender on top.
The blender on top, man. Oh man, it made so much.
I feel terrible for those 20,000 Kickstarter folks, but I don't know how you would look at that device and not think to yourself, "This is like an SNL sketch." Right?
Oh, dude, it's totally. Or I mean, you could go. The rabbit hole goes deep. I mean, go look at the Juicero. Did you remember that story?
Oh yeah, the Juicero.
The Juicero, squeezing the bag. You just squeeze the bag of juice, and you get the same amount of juice.
$700 press.
They're like, no, you can't get more juice. And someone just opened up the bag and just went and got the same amount of juice out of it. It's just like, oh man. Yeah, as seen on TV is now basically the equivalent as seen on TikTok, as seen on Kickstarter, that sort of thing. So be wary.
That's hilarious. We have to. It's too much that cool. So all right, folks.
So real quick, like I said, summer's over for us. My kiddos start school tomorrow.
Yep.
When does your kiddo start?
In 2 weeks. We start in September.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
To be fair,
we go through like the middle of June. You stop at like May, right? End of May.
Yeah, it was end of May. It was end of May for us.
Yeah.
And they start school, and I am so glad. This is the first summer in a while. The first summer I think that we've ever had as a father and his parents that were just like, when is summer over? When is summer over? Get it.
Are you popping the champagne bottles tomorrow?
Dude, tomorrow.
You're also working from home, right? Like
it's been tough. It's been they're just getting older. Like I was talking to you earlier this week, and my kiddo, he's going into middle school and he's got like band practice and whatnot. And we had the whole conversation of like, well, do we get him a cell phone? Like, or do we go down that route? And I'm like, no, he's going to end up losing it. He's going to get it taken up by a teacher. We're going to have to go pick it up. And I didn't want to have to deal with that nonsense of like him. So
here's a really important question. Why didn't you just get him a Nokia? Like a $60 burner phone. It has to be an iPhone. Is that your thought process?
I didn't. Well, one is I could have gotten him a regular like smartphone, right? It needed to be a smartphone because I wanted him to be able to text me. He's already used to text. He's from an age where he texts me. So he uses his iPad to text me from when I'm out of the house or whatever. So he's already used to that. And second, I want to be able to just send him a message and be like, I'm on my way or whatever. And
I figured.
And also with it being like an iPhone or being on I can control it. It's part of the family group within the Apple ecosystem, the walled garden. And so you can turn things off. I also wanted to be able to track them. So use it as a tracker. But the conversation with the wife and me was like, well, if he leaves the phone, I can't track the kid if the phone is left in a locker or left in a cubby or whatever, or in a backpack. Whatever.
I mean, he might take off his watch, right?
Right. I'm not saying that's incorrect. You're not wrong there, but at least the watch leaves the house strapped to his wrist, and we've been testing him with it for the past couple of days, and he leaves it on. He doesn't even notice that it's on anymore. So the idea is, and also
he gets busted once, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, right, they're tracking me. I'm just gonna leave this in the locker."
Well, right, but at the same time, the watch is limited, right? So like, there's apps. You can't load apps on it without a phone, and the watch is the phone, so it's controlled by my phone, which I set it up and then put it on his wrist, and then it has its own phone number. So I can call him. He can call me by going to certain menus, and that's pretty much it. But he has a watch, and he's got the time, and he can set alarms, and he gamifies with activity. He found the activity monitor earlier today. He's like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Oh, when you run around, you can steps." He's like, "Oh, so I fill up my rings?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, get your Chivos."
Does he send text to his friends?
He does it online on his computer by talking to his friends through like Minecraft and all that. But he doesn't know the phone number to the watch.
I gotcha.
Because there is a way you can look it up, but there is no phone number.
He doesn't have his own iCloud account upon which
he does, but it's all managed under the family, so it's really locked down. Like that's the cool part. I mean, again, what you pay for with the Apple ecosystem in the walled garden is you have a lot more control of what you can do. The kids all have kid iCloud accounts, and all purchases, all everything are managed through a guardian or a parent. So everything has to come through me first. Even if he goes on his iPad and tries to download an app or a game, it'll ping my phone and go, "Hey, can they download this?" And I'm like, "No."
I get that too. And then I say no, and then I hear a scream from upstairs. And I'm like, "You should have came down and asked me first. I would have done it, but since you just tried."
So you tried to, even though the device is saying, "Can they ask?" And I wanted to ask from you first.
Yeah. Like before 7 a.m., I can block them. After a certain time, I can.
I have them set like that too. So like before 7, that way they don't wake up at 5 a.m. and they're on their iPad. Then I'm like, then they're zombies all day, right?
It was. So, I mean, God forbid, I'm not on my iPad at 5 a.m. Right? That's ridiculous. Good stuff. Good parenting. I realized the value of kids having cell phones last year after spending 2 or 3 days in a row for 45 minutes outside my kid's school. Sounds like your kids should have walked home, Dan.
But we also have like we live in an age where creepers are around now. Like they were always there, but like it's so weird. I get it.
Dude, crime has never been lower in the United States, but the media presents it like massive. You're like, because in Texas, all they do is tell you, protect your children, buy more guns.
Yeah, but then people, there's no good guys with a gun here.
Statistically, your child is just as likely to be kidnapped and hurt as they were 50 years ago, right? Like it's the same. It's actually lower statistically for your kids to be hurt. But I get it. Whatever. I worry too. Like I all the time, right? I get it. But yeah, it's not going to happen. You're going to track your kid and be like, wow, this kid's life is really boring. This kid goes to school and comes back home. There isn't
pretty much.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, you're right, Rio. We'll teach him. Don't worry. Uncle Cautious is going to be like, this is how you get around those restrictions.
No. This is why you have an Apple product. They can't turn off the tracking. You physically cannot turn off the tracking. The device, even powered off, still sends tracking information.
Yeah, Brandon, that's actually what my wife and I are talking about. Sort of a lower end, decent phone. Oh, you want to make phone calls? Here's a phone to make phone calls, and then you're done.
It's not about it's not about the lower end phone. The problem is lower end phones are cheaper devices, and you're right. They break it. I can just go buy another one. But my kids have also had iPads forever, and they treat their iPad well because they've got a respect for the device. Like my kids have respect.
I mean, like I've seen the cracked screens on your kids' iPads. Not now, before for sure. Oh,
no, really. Never a cracked screen on my kid's iPad.
For a second. That's low. I mean, like you must spend a lot of money putting them in protective devices. Then, like
I spent $25 on an Amazon case.
Wrap them in otter boxes.
They've got a big case on them. But yes, they've always take care of the devices, right? Like they've been taught that, like, hey, you break your device, kiddo, and that you're out of an iPad.
Yeah, exactly. Never. Joe only works in absolutes. It's the best. It never happens. It's always there.
Hey, it hasn't happened. You guys want to bring it up and curse my family? Thinner, by all means, go for it.
You have been hexed, my friend.
Fucking monkey paw. No, seriously. Like I just, they've been raised enough to like treat the console.
That's awesome. My kid has cracked all 3 of the iPads that I've inherited all her old ones, and within moments of giving her a new one, she figures out how to crack my old one. So
now they're on iPad Air 2s, and they've been on them for 3+ years now. And I got those used from somebody. So like, and when I got them, they were, the one that my youngest son had a crack on it when we got it used. So there was a crack in it, but then I put a glass screen protector over that, and then it was fine.
Do that one more time.
Never.
All right, you know what? We're never going to go over again because it's late for me here.
Yeah. The thing is not just stuff for hands. Yeah, I mean, again, That's the thing, and I didn't want a phone. I wanted it strapped to their wrist, and as long as they don't fidget with it, it's just a watch for them.
Did you have to get one for Ollie, or was this like a rite of passage for the
Rite of passage.
All right, perfect. That's great.
So that was another thing. We made it a rite of passage. Going into middle school, that sort of thing. And so like, so he's already asking. He's like, can I get one? I'm like, when you get older, kiddo.
Grow up.
Grow up.
Exactly. Grow up and get a job. One or the other. One of those two options.
That's true. That's true. I mean, the first thing I did is buy like a $4 little silicone wrap for the watch too. So
yeah, nothing like wrapping your $500 watch in a $4 wrap. That's the stuff. All right, folks. Let's go.
This guy. All right, everyone. Take care. Have a good. Hopefully, if you've got kids and your kids start school soon.
When you leave the house on like a day trip, you're like, I'm gonna go shopping, maybe get a new jacket, buy some clothes. How much in dollar value are you rocking in electronics gear? You know what? Don't say it. I don't want anybody mugging you.
No, seriously, that's a good question. I mean,
it's a phone, it's a watch.
I got my phone, my watch, my glasses. We got
to get a review of that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna give. I got the tech glasses. I've got the Echo frames on, and then
headphones, probably
air tags. Maybe I've got a couple air tags on. My keys and my.
$1,200 is Rio's guess.
At least, yeah. I mean,
$1,800 because he doesn't buy the cheap Apple stuff.
I don't. Like for example, like I wait every few years. I wait for the watches to. I don't buy them every year. I buy them every 2 years or so because I buy the stainless steel model, which is double the price of the normal because they're more resistant.
Yeah, because they're more resistant.
Yeah. I don't like the weight of the
they got better drip. Come
on. Yeah, they got better drip. They do. I don't like the weight of the aluminum sport models. So I've always the first one I bought was the stainless steel one. So I've always bought the stainless steel models.
Oh my gosh, that cracks me up.
So yeah, you're right. So if the watch alone.
Think about that for a second. Think about that, right? You're leaving the house with like $2,000 worth of electronic gear on you.
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s, if I left the house with $100 sneakers, I was in trouble. Yeah. Right, like this is a whole different and safer world, man.
You are 100% correct. Like it's expected, right? Like everyone's rock. I mean, you remember the late 90s, early aughts. Like it was like you didn't rock the iPod headphones on the subway.
There were like notices on the subway.
They're like so everyone would like get Sharpie or like get like color them or like tuck them in the shirt. Or like they tossed them.
The doors would open and they would reach and snatch it, and then the doors would close.
Right. So like if you were wearing the white, so everyone would just be like, "No, I don't want those white ones. Leave those in the good. Like I'll rock my old Sony earbuds."
Yeah, I'll plug in my shitty ones on my.
Because you don't want to be rocking around with the.
No, because your iPod was
Yeah, I mean there's multiple reasons for all of that.
Stats, Brandon, it's
for sure. Like tech is more accessible. Tech has dropped in prices. We're now multiple generations into tech, so people don't always need the bleeding edge. They'll buy like people used to steal iPhones, and now everyone's got a fucking iPhone, right? So like, what's the point of steal? Plus, everyone's already learned that I've stolen an iPhone. I can't unlock it anyway. I'm gonna have to go spend, $50, $80 with some guy in Chinatown or whatever to go unlock this iPhone even if they can, right? It's just like all these like things, and
there's some strong security measures on the iPhone.
So they've made it harder. So it's almost like not worth it, right?
Almost, unless you run an iPhone repair shop, then you've got a lot of extra. No.
I wish. Last thing before I end the show. Last thing, I wish that was the case. You can't even chop shop iPhones anymore. You know that, right?
I thought you could. I thought you can repair iPhones now on your own. No, you can't chop shop them.
But let's say you stole an iPhone and you're like, I'm gonna go sell it for the parts. Because I can't. Motherboard is out of it.
Classic Bronx maneuver was to sell it for the parts, baby. That's what we did.
Can't now. So LCDs, the cameras, all the modules on the inside are tied to the hardware ID of the phone. So that's what people hate, right? Like they're like, I can't repair my phone because they can't go and buy like, my camera's not working. Let me buy a new camera. They buy some camera off of AliExpress or eBay, pop it into their phone, and the phone goes, nope, it doesn't detect it. It doesn't work. The camera ID.
That's a piece of shit.
It does, right? It's like it's sucks.
Fill landfills full of.
I mean, yeah, it's like it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it makes it so that people don't steal your shit for chop shop, but then at the same time, when it comes for the repair side, as someone that like right to repair is a thing for me, it's like that's the double-edged sword. It's like now you can't buy the parts.
It's a double-edged sword in a world that has gotten safer, is my hypothesis, Joe.
Yeah.
Ignorant people steal Apple products. You're totally right. Well, it's the new shiny, right? At worst case, they can steal my $10 case, right? That's what they can get away with the $10 case. All right,
Which is
Joe.
the same case you've had on your phone 2 phones in a row, right?
Yeah. This is
It's
maybe 3
vintage.
phones in a row.
It's nostalgia. It's vintage.
It's vintage.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We went over because we like to talk. But like, subscribe, share, enjoy the rest of this heat wave.
Dude, pray for rain, man. Let's get some cool weather in here, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get some cool weather out here. Hopefully the fall comes faster.
If only for the folks who enjoy baseball, right, Rolls? We got to get out there to the stadium. It's way too hot to even enjoy a game in the stadium.
No, you can't do anything. Football season is starting. The preseason hit on Thursday.
Nobody cares about football, Joe. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about football.
I do.
Cancel here by cautious play.
August is awful for these players in the pads. So like, let's just...
Oh no, in the pads.
I'm thinking also about kids. They're going back to school. High school students are like out there playing football, and they started like 2 weeks ago.
True. Well, the AC in my place was down for half the day, so it was really hot. Yeah. No. All right, my dudes and peoples and everyone's on the chat channel. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks so much, everyone. Like, subscribe, share. Another episode in the can.
Be kind.
Be kind, everyone.